I just got a heads up that the Panthers. This was another issue we didn't talk about. I know we literally did a whole podcast on the Panthers. I didn't have that on my bingo. This morning when I woke up, I was like, what am I going to focus on with Charles Robinson? What's the theme for the day? And then, David Tepper happened. The Panthers also fired Duce Staley, assistant head coach and running backs coach, and Josh McCown. Now, I haven't done any digging on that aspect of it, but I do know there was also a question of it looked good on paper when you had this all-star cast of coaches. Mm-hmm. But were there too many voices in Bryce Young's head as well? Yeah, from Frank Reich to Thomas Brown to Josh McCown, that's a lot of alphas in the room on the offense. Say nothing of Jim Caldwell is probably the most qualified of them all.
Especially if it's when there's a lot of quarterback voices in organizations and they're not in sync. Yeah. And I'm not saying they weren't, but I'll give you, I remember in Philly when Wentz was going through it there. And look, I know it didn't work out for him when he moved on anyway, but I do remember a time when there were 3 or 4 quarterbacks on staff and they were all doling out different advice on how he needed to fix himself. Here's what he needed to do mechanically. Here's what he did. Here's the leadership. And pretty soon it was just remember when Justin Fields was like, I got too much stuff going on here. I just don't want to think about all this stuff. And it's messing with my head, so I wonder if maybe that's a little bit. I'm very curious too, though. If we ever hear the story about how they landed on Bryce Young, I'd be curious to know who Josh McCown liked between those two, because I felt like in the draft process, Josh really, really liked Stroud, and it's this is going to be one that will be unraveling for a little bit, so it'll be fun.
Or is it just one of those things where it's the truth is just somewhere in the middle? That's not fun, but it's somewhere in the middle where it's and you could also, I think everything you're saying, Charles, adds up, because you could also like both these guys. And this is we got to wrap this up and we can go on. This is why I love talking. I love emptying your notebook, and we got so many different directions we could always go. But we both know that NFL history is littered with players, specifically quarterbacks, who through no fault of their own were born on the wrong side of the tracks, if you will, or just they were drafted into the wrong situation. And it's who's to say that both these quarterbacks couldn't and can't still be, to your point, which you keep hammering home, it's early, can't still be good. Likewise, who's to say that you couldn't like them both? But if pressed into making a decision, you take Bryce Young, which is why my life motto is there's no right or wrong decision. You make a decision, you make it right. And the Panthers have not made that decision right. We don't know if they made the wrong decision, but they have not made that decision right as of yet. Chuck, I appreciate you, man.
Before, as we sign off, wasn't that long ago that you and I were talking to each other about man, does Lamar, does he hate the Ravens? And this is just, he's going to have to go somewhere else. He has to be traded. Was the injury real? Oh my gosh, could this be any worse? Have we seen the best of Lamar? Now he's the MVP candidate.
Oh my God. Gee whiz. Talk about freezing cold takes, man. There's not just takes. There's just storylines that are remember that?
It wasn't that long ago, It wasn't that long ago. We were this is what a,
you know
what
I'm afraid of? You know what I'm afraid of? I'm afraid that that's how we're gonna look back on Belichick. We're gonna look back on this entire season of firing Belichick. What was the scene in Game of Thrones? When the queen made the walk, what's her name? What's you know what I'm talking about?
Not Khaleesi.
No, not Khaleesi. The walk of shame.
You're trying to get me to go back on series I haven't watched in.
Anyway, the people watching and listening, they'll remember. But point being, it's this entire season has been that for Bill Belichick. We've just been throwing shit at Bill Belichick as he walks down the street. What if he survives this?
Yeah, that's what believe me. I have these moments where I'm what if he doesn't get fired? What if he drafts a quarterback, right? Drake May, whoever, with the pick, They have all this money to spend in free agency. And then what if next year it's the revenge tour? And I'm like, oh my God. Like, what? And it feels like it is.
Seriously, I looked at this. Cersei Lannister. Cersei Lannister. That's what I was trying to think. Like,
there you go.
Yeah. Cersei Lannister. That's what I was trying to remember. But no, right? Like, because it's just like nobody said anything, and he just letting all of us just fill this vacuum with speculation about Belichick and how he's going to get fired, and if he's going to go to the Panthers or wherever. And it's like, what if he just come in? What if he just like, yeah, okay, I see you. I'm keeping receipts. Like he needs an excuse to make our lives miserable. But he could totally come back and we could look at this and be like, remember that time we fired Bill Belichick and before we got another great quarterback and started a new dynasty? Remember that? Yeah. Fun times. All right, man. Always fun talking. I could literally talk to you all day. I love you. I'm going to call you about a trade. We haven't made a dynasty trade in a while. I'm going to call you. All right. Later. Hey, thanks so much for kicking it with your main man, Michael Smith. Be sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel, but also subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Rate it, review it, tell your friends about it. Oh, and be sure to follow me on social media.